Hey y'all, today I am sharing a new What's for Dinner. I tried out 5 new to us recipes and they all honestly turned out so very good. I'm really excited to share these recipes with you guys if you've never made them before. If you are in a dinner rut, I know what it's like, and I really hope that you do come across this video and that I'm able to help. I have got several years worth of these videos on my page, and my hope is that there is something for everyone out there throughout these videos. I really do enjoy trying out new recipes and just letting you know what we think of them. So I hope that you enjoy this video. Let's go ahead and jump on into these recipes. Up first, I am making cowboy spaghetti. So the first thing I did is I took 5 slices of bacon and I got that chopped up. I like to do that using scissors. I just think it's the easiest way. And I just dumped that out into my skillet and cooked it over about a medium heat until it was nice and crispy. With that slotted spoon, I did remove that bacon out of the grease onto a paper towel lined plate. Just going to set that to the side. And I did end up draining about half of that bacon grease, which, by the way, I always save that for other recipes, but I am going to fry up about a pound of ground beef in that remaining bacon grease. And then when it was about halfway cooked through, that's when I like to personally go in and season the meat. I know everyone's different with that, but I did some onion powder, some Lorry seasoned salt, and some black pepper. So I just let that continue cooking until the meat was fully cooked. And then I'm going to drain the grease since there was quite a bit left. So here I'm just soaking it up with some paper towels. I do have a couple other methods as well, but here lately that's just what I've been doing the most here lately, I'd say. But then I added in a big spoonful of minced garlic. I just use the kind in the jar. I'm also going to grab my Worcestershire sauce, and you need about a tablespoon. I didn't measure it. To me, the more the better on that stuff. I'm also going to grab a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes, as well as 2 cans of tomato sauce. And I'm just going to get all 3 of those dumped into my skillet with that ground beef. And I'm just going to get all of this mixed together really good. I have it on about a medium high heat at this point, I would say, and I'm just waiting for it to come up to like a low boil. And then once it reaches that point, I'm going to turn the heat down and I'm just going to let it simmer away. Not really any certain time. I just did it until everything else was done. So over to the side, I was boiling a pot of water and I'm going to drop in this box of angel hair pasta. I drained the pasta. It's chilling out in the sink. So now I'm going to make the cowboy butter Alfredo sauce. So you melt down 6 tablespoons of butter, and then in this bowl I've got some paprika, dried parsley, dried chives, cayenne pepper, dried thyme, and some crushed red pepper flakes. I pre-measured out all of that before I even got started. I will have the recipe linked in my description box if you want like a printable version, the exact measurements, all that. But after I let the spices cook with the butter for about a minute, I added in 2.5 cups of some heavy cream, and then I let that come up to a boil, and then I added in a spoonful of garlic to that, and I let it simmer for about 5 minutes, I would say. And then I'm going to add in a 1/2 cup of some Parmesan cheese that I just quickly shredded myself, and then I'm just going to let that fully melt throughout the sauce. And then I'm going to take that cooked and drained pasta, I'm just going to dump it in this big pot with the sauce. I absolutely hate how sticky pasta gets after you let it sit for a few minutes without any sauce, but it took me a couple of minutes to get that sauce worked through it. So you just want it to be fully coating everything. But now we can start assembling everything. So I've got a 13x9 casserole out. I've sprayed it with some Pam just in case, and I've dumped out all of that creamy pasta, got it spread out evenly, and then I'm just going to add all of that meat sauce over the top. Again, just making sure to, spread it out evenly. And then for the topping, I did shred up about 4 ounces of Colby Jack cheese, and I also shredded 4 ounces of sharp cheddar. So I'm just going to take that combination and sprinkle that all over top of the spaghetti. And then I'm going to hit it with that cooked and crumbled bacon that I made in the very first step. And then lastly, I'm just going to sprinkle it with some dried chives. So my oven is preheated to 375 degrees, and I'm just going to pop this in to bake for about 25 minutes. So here's what it's looking like straight from the oven. I did let it rest for, I'd say, about 5 minutes before digging into it, but definitely wanted to give y'all a real good close-up of this because I think that looks incredible. I did serve it with some garlic knots, and this whole meal just came out absolutely delicious. We do not have spaghetti very often, so it always feels special when we do, but this version was so unique and different. It didn't even really taste like a typical spaghetti. Such great flavors. We all absolutely loved it. Up next, I'm going to be making some buffalo chicken mini sub sandwiches. So I am going to be making the buffalo chicken in my Instant Pot. I've added 3 boneless, skinless chicken breasts to the bottom. You need around 2 pounds of chicken. And I'm just seasoning the chicken with a tablespoon of ranch seasoning. I'm adding in 4 tablespoons of butter, and I'm also going to season with garlic powder. Now, obviously, you can use any kind of buffalo sauce that you want. You need 3/4 of a cup, but I personally love this Kinder's one. It has such a great flavor. Any recipe that I've used it in, the flavor just really stands out. You also want to add in a 1/2 cup of chicken broth. I used water and chicken bouillon powder because I was out, but I'm just going to secure that lid on and let it pressure cook for 15 minutes. Now, these are the mini subs that I'm going to be using. It's the King's Hawaiian brand. I didn't even know that they made these, but as you can see, I got these marked down. They were in the clearance section. I could not pass that up. So when I got home from the grocery store, I stuck those in the freezer and pulled them out the day that I wanted to use them, and they thaw out so quickly. But I also wanted to show y'all that those are pre-cut, which is so nice. I wasn't expecting that. So after the 15 minutes, I let the Instant Pot natural release, and then when that pin dropped, I'm going to take the chicken out and put it on a plate. I prefer to do it that way, especially when something's in like a lot of liquid. I just find it easier to pull it out of the liquid and shred it. But as you can see, it is pulling apart so easily and effortlessly. I'm just doing the 2-fork method, but after I get all of that chicken shredded up, I'm just going to dump it back on into that Instant Pot and just let it sit for a few minutes. Let it kind of soak up all of the buffalo flavor and the butter, all that good stuff. Really great flavor. So while I was letting that chicken kind of soak in the sauce, I was buttering and toasting the sub rolls. I just did that over to the side on the stove real quick. I just figured that would make it, a little extra better. And then I'm just going to take some tongs and pull that chicken out of the sauce and add it to the bottom half of the rolls. And I'm doing it this way versus like spooning it on there because I'm just trying to prevent these sandwiches from getting like super soggy. Nobody wants a soggy sandwich. But after I get all that chicken piled on there, I'm going to top it with some shredded sharp cheddar cheese. I also wanted to throw in that I love that this recipe makes quite a bit of that buffalo chicken. I had quite a bit left over, and it was enough for the next couple of days. For lunches, I use it in different ways, and it was even better after it sat in the fridge overnight, I'm telling you. The recipe also said that you can take some ranch and like drizzle it over the chicken, but my son does not eat ranch unless it's like really disguised into something, so I decided to just serve it on the side. But here it is. Not the prettiest thing in the world, a little messy, but that don't matter. I made some homemade ranch to dip it in. I was out of buttermilk though. I had to use regular milk, and it is just so much better with buttermilk. I served these with some fries. I did not care for those because I baked them in the oven, and I've just realized I don't care for oven-baked fries anymore. But I do recommend those sandwiches, and I also think they would be great for parties. On this night, I am making some hamburger stew. It's basically just like a regular beef stew, except it uses ground beef. So that's going to make it a lot easier, and it's also going to make it cheaper. So I started off by browning up 2 pounds of ground beef in my Dutch oven, and I decided to season it with this Kinder's The Blend seasoning. It's got your salt, pepper, and garlic in it, and I did also add in some onion powder. So just going to continue cooking that until it's no longer pink, and then I'm going to take take this slotted spoon and give it a few taps to get out as much grease as I can. And I'm just going to start transferring that over to a paper towel lined bowl. I, of course, will not make you sit here and watch me do every bit of that, but just wanted to give you an idea of it. But I need to get that out so I can saute in some vegetables, and I'll add that back in later. I also need some of that grease left, so I did discard some of the grease. I left in about a couple tablespoons, and then I added in 4 carrots that I peeled and chopped. If you like onions, you can dice one up and saute it with the carrots during this step. I also cooked the carrots with some minced garlic, and I cooked those down for about 5 minutes, and then I added 3 tablespoons of some all-purpose flour, just stirring that to coat the vegetables, and that's going to help thicken it up a little bit later on. But after I let that flour cook out for a couple of minutes, I added in 3 cups of beef broth, 2 cans of these sliced stewed tomatoes. You'll need a can of tomato soup. Just adding in the whole can. And the recipe called for a tablespoon of the Better Than Bouillon beef paste, but I don't have any of that, so I just used the last of my beef bouillon powder. It was nice to get that used up. And I'm also adding in 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And then I did peel and dice 3 russet potatoes. I'm adding in a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, 1/4 teaspoon of dried thyme, a bay leaf, 2 1/4 teaspoons of salt, and a teaspoon of pepper. The recipe does call for 1.5 cups of frozen green beans. I originally started by measuring it out, but then I realized it's kind of pointless to leave a little bit left in that bag and throw it in the freezer. So I just went ahead and finished off the whole bag, and it definitely wasn't too much or anything. I think that it was perfect. I have never used green beans in a beef stew recipe, but I really enjoyed it in this one. I didn't even realize that I liked frozen green beans that much, but they came out really good in this recipe. But as you've seen, I added back in the cooked ground beef. I'm trying to show y'all here that it's starting to bubble and simmer. So what I'm going to do is cover it with a lid and let it simmer for about 2 hours. Now, you will want to come in every now and then and give it a stir, especially if you are cooking it in a Dutch oven, or else it will stick and kind of burn to the bottom. I have done that so many times. I'm not always the best at taking my own advice, or I'll just get carried away doing something else and kind of forget, but definitely come in and stir it. But as you can see, that makes a lot. Like, this is a very hearty dish. This is going to be so perfect for the cooler months ahead. I did serve ours with some cornbread muffins. Went really good with this. But this came out so good. I cannot recommend this enough. Tastes it just like your typical beef stew, but again, you're just using the hamburger meat. And I thought it was, fairly easy, and it tasted so good left over. And I also had enough to freeze some, so I can pull that out on a rainy day that I need it. I have been seeing so many pictures and videos of people making hot honey chicken tenders with mac and cheese, and I've never done that before, so I'm finally gonna give it a go. So in this bowl, I've got a family size pack of chicken tenders. I did remove the tendons before I even started this clip, and I'm just seasoning those up with some salt, pepper, onion and garlic powder, chili powder, a little bit of cayenne, and some smoked paprika. I'm also gonna sprinkle in some Frank's Red hot sauce. I am following Teeny's recipe. I know a lot of you guys know who I'm talking about. I will link her video in my description box, but I truly love her recipe, so I was confident that this was going to turn out good. But with my little spatula there, I'm just making sure that all of my chicken is fully coated in all of those seasonings. And then I'm going to get this covered with some buttermilk. And if you are wondering why my buttermilk looks so weird, it's like kind of grainy and thin, it's because I froze this buttermilk and thawed it out to use it for this. I've always heard that you can do this, and it was my first time trying. I will never do it again. I just don't like the looks or anything about it. It served its purpose, but I don't want to do it again. But I got that covered up, and I actually did that the night before, so it soaked all night. Now here we are. The next day is a little bit before dinner, and I'm going to start making the Crockpot mac and cheese. I've been using this recipe for a few years now, and we absolutely love it. I do cut the recipe in half, so I cook up a half a box of elbow noodles, so 8 ounces, drain them, throw them in my crock pot, and I add in 2 tablespoons of butter and a drizzle of olive oil. Here I'm adding in a cup of Velveeta cheese. I just cube it up, cram it in the measuring cup. I know it's kind of a Odd way to measure that, but that's just how I do it. I also added in 2 cups of shredded sharp cheddar cheese. It calls for a can of evaporated milk. I'm trying out this kicking jalapeno one, and there's Teeny on the can. If you did not know who I was talking about, I was excited that she did this collab. I definitely wanted to support her, and it just sounded good. I knew that was going to be good in a mac and cheese. I also added in a cup of milk, and I'm doing a teaspoon of some Lawry's seasoned salt. Just going to give that a quick stir. Doesn't got to be perfect. And then I'm going to add on my lid, and I'm going to let this cook on low for 2 hours. After the 1 hour mark, you do want to come in and give it a good stir. So once that was getting close to being done, I'm going to start cooking up the chicken tenders. So in this small casserole dish, I've added in some all-purpose flour, no certain amount really. I also did a little bit of cornstarch. It's supposed to help make it extra crispy. I don't know how true that is, but I guess we'll do it anyways. And then I'm going to use mostly all of those same seasonings that I use to season up the chicken tenders. I'm just going to, like she said, go a little bit more heavy-handed when seasoning the flour. I didn't add in the smoked paprika for the flour, though, because I've noticed that my family doesn't like when I do anything like too much with it. Like, we don't want to overpower with the smoked paprika. I personally love it. They like it. They just don't want too much of it. So that's why I left it out of the flour. But anyways, now I'm going to start breading up that chicken. Just simply pulling it out of the buttermilk, rolling it around in that seasoned flour. Very simple. It's messy, but it's always worth it. So now I'm going to make the hot honey. Very easy as well. I melt down 3 tablespoons of butter. I added in a little bit of garlic powder, tiny amount of smoked paprika. Then I'm adding in a 1/3 cup of honey and a 1/4 cup of that Frank's Red Hot Sauce. Stir it together and let it simmer for a few minutes. And that is it. Very easy. So now I'm going to go outside and start deep frying these chicken tenders. I do not like the smell of a deep fryer in the house. I do it every now and then, but not very often. This is a great solution if you can, to fry it outside. That way you don't have to deal with the smell. That's one of the reasons I don't deep fry that often. It's the smell. Like, our bedroom is right off from the kitchen, and it keeps me up at night. It drives me crazy. But anyways, these cook up very quickly. I don't remember exactly how many minutes. I mean, you can tell when they're done, when they turn nice and golden brown. But yeah, they came out perfectly. And then that second batch, though, I messed up on. I didn't dip the baskets in the oil for like a minute or two to heat them back up, so the breading stuck on the second batch. So that was unfortunate, but it is what it is. But by the time I got those done and brought back into the house, the mac and cheese was done. So creamy and cheesy. Perfect. But now I'm going to take some of those chicken tenders and I'm going to coat it in some of that hot honey sauce and just give it a good shake. I didn't coat all of the tenders because not everyone wanted to try that sauce. Let me tell you, they were missing out. But here's my plate. Top those tenders with some parsley, that mac and cheese. Oh my goodness. That jalapeno evaporated milk made it just so much better. It's not spicy in my opinion. It gives it just a slight little kick, not overpowering at all. I also made some asparagus to go with it. And not only does this plate look restaurant worthy, it honestly tasted it as well. This was so incredibly good. I was very proud of myself. And yeah, I hope you guys try it out. Lastly, I am going to make some creamy bacon pork chops. This recipe definitely exceeded my expectations, and it was so easy and fast. So the first thing I did was I took 6 slices of bacon, I diced them up and threw them in my frying pan over there to the left. And now I'm taking my pork chops and I'm just getting those seasoned on both sides with just a little bit of salt and pepper. Now, I have talked about this in many videos if you have watched older videos of mine, but I'm using Uncle Charlie pork chops and they are my absolute favorite. I'm really sad that it's not like a worldwide thing. I know it's not available to that many people. I know it's here in Kentucky. I'm not sure if it's in other states. Please let me know if it is, but just let me tell you, if you have an opportunity to get your hands on Uncle Charlie's pork chops, do it. It's life-changing. It's daylight and dark from like regular store-bought pork chops. I don't know what they do to make them so tender, but I'm going to make it a mission to figure it out so that I can share the knowledge with y'all that cannot get Uncle Charlie's pork chops. But anyways, I fried up the bacon until it was crispy, removed it to a paper towel lined bowl. I left all of that bacon grease in the skillet, and that's what I'm going to use to cook these pork chops in. The recipe actually only calls for 4 pork chops, but I decided to cook up a couple extra. I knew that my husband would want 2, and the kids are always good with 1, but I decided to just do another one in case they wanted extra. You never know. But since these are like normal size, they're not too thick or anything, I only cook these for maybe like 3.5 minutes per side. But you do want to fully cook them here, and I'm just going to get those removed to a plate and just let those, rest over to the side. I did cover them with some tinfoil. And then I'm going to add in a tablespoon of flour into the skillet, cook it down for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to add in a 1/2 cup of chicken broth. It did call for a tiny amount of lemon juice. Don't know why my camera got so blurry that all I do is the steam. Anyways, I forgot to buy a lemon. Luckily, I had a lemon juice packet. I'm pretty sure that I recently brought that home from Long John Silver's. Love Long John Silver's, by the way. I know a lot of people kind of dog on it. Not me. I added in some garlic powder, and as you can see, it reduced down and thickened so quick. So I added in 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream, and that's going to thicken pretty quickly. At this point, you can taste it and see if you want to add some salt and pepper. I did add a little bit of each. And then I'm going to go ahead and add back in all of those cooked pork chops right on into the sauce. And as always, I always throw back in the juices that accumulated on that plate. Then I'm going to take that crispy cooked bacon and just kind of sprinkle it over each pork chop. And that is all there is to it. Definitely something different. I thought it was fun. Perfectly tender pork chops and a super flavorful sauce. What more can you ask for? I did top it with some parsley. I served it with some homemade mashed potatoes, some peas, and some Sister Schubert rolls. This whole meal was honestly a 10 out of 10. We all loved it. So that's all I got for y'all in today's video. I hope that I was able to give you a few ideas. I want to thank you all for watching. My next video will be Halloween themed dinners, so I hope to see you all there as well.